Hello everyone and welcome to another one of my videos. Let's sit down and have a chat about every single book that I read in January. And let me tell you, January was an incredible month for me. I was reading such good books that I was to the point where I had to reflect on, were they really that good? Am I being too lenient on books? Do I need to be a little bit more hardcore on my rankings? But no, genuinely, these books were just that good. We are starting out 2026 fierce. I almost worry about what that means later on in the year, but as of right now, oh man, on fire. So the first book I read was Hollow by Caroline Peckman and Suzanne Valenti. This is the Twisted Sisters, and they're also the authors of the Zodiac Academy series. And you guys, I loved this book. 5 stars. 5 stars all the way. I know that there's some controversy out there. It seems that you either love this book or you hate this book. I was in the loved category. So you have the main character girl, her name is Ferris, and she lives in this world that's basically being taken over by this enchanted forest, and it's killing off everything. It's not a nice forest as it takes over villages and things like that. It's basically killing everybody. Once every, I think 10 years or something like that, there is this chance, the forest opens up and allows some champions to enter the forest and try to break its curse. And so Ferris decides that even though she isn't a hero or isn't being trained to go into the forest, she waits for it to open and she goes in there. She feels this draw to the forest, this need to be in there. I don't want to give too much away as to why she's in there. You'd have to read the book to really know that. But she ends up going in there. And then while she's in there, she meets Prince Bane, who just so happens to be this fae of almost like the underworld in a way. He can control the dead. These beings that are called hollows, and they're mindless zombies that just eat anything and everything. A lot of humans have been destroyed by the hollows. And then the fae hate the humans hate the fae, but they're both trying to battle this forest and trying to win over these spirits so that they can break the curse. While she's in the forest, she runs across Prince Bane, and they end up working together. It was just a really good book. I loved it. I loved the banter between the two characters. I loved the story. I love how the story was told. It wasn't the best literature in the world. It kind of reminds me of Zodiac Academy a little bit. It wasn't the best literature in the world, but if you can get beyond some typos, which honestly, I actually found quite amusing, they made me laugh. But if you can get beyond that, I felt it was a really good story. Some people didn't like the chemistry between Ferris and Prince Bane. I personally loved it. I thought it had just the right amount of enemies to lover vibe in it for what I liked. And the way that it ended, oh my gosh, you guys, oh my gosh, this cannot wait to get into book 2. That's all I'm saying. Then I went into a little bit of a audiobook kick. For those of you who've been following me for a little bit, watching my videos, you know that I am training to run a marathon. And so I've been doing a lot of outdoor running lately, and something that has just become a new thing for me to do while I'm out running is to listen to audiobooks. Now, I can't listen to new audiobooks. It has to be audiobooks that I've already listened to, because sometimes I tone out or I miss things because I'm worried about traffic or a stoplight or something. So it has to be something that I've already listened to. So I decided that I'm going to listen to the Death Before Dragons series, which is one of my all-time favorite series. I love Val and I love Zav. Oh, man, if you have watched my top 10 book boyfriends, Zav is on that list. I will love him forever. He is a dragon. He is a dragon, and he is hot even in all of his robe splendor. I read 3 of the books in the series in January. The first one is Sinister Magic, and that one is basically just setting up the whole world. So you have Val, who is half human, half fae, but she's never met her fae side of her family, which was her father. The fae left the world a long time ago, And so she never got to meet her dad. And since then, you've had magical beings come down to Earth from like other realms and stuff and have kind of made Earth their home. And Val, as a retired military servicewoman, what she ends up doing is she ends up trying to protect the humans from the magical people. So she doesn't really try to go after the magical people that are not hurting humans. But if there's trolls up in the mountains eating humans, she's going to go and she's going to kill those trolls. Now, because of this, she has gained quite the reputation, in the magical community as the Deathbringer, because if magical people see her, they die. And, she tries to tell them it's only for bad people. It's only if you've broken the law. But, yeah, I was going to say something, but that it pertains to the world now, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not saying anything. And then she ends up meeting Zav, who comes to the realm looking for prisoners that he needs to take back to his world for rehabilitation. They keep running into each other. And so then he decides that he wants her help to use her as bait because, she has a tendency to vex his enemies. I just love that. This has a whole romance between the two of them, but it also has lots of action and fighting. Like she fights with a sword and a gun, and she's a bit of an older FMC, so she references things all the time, like her gun. She named her gun Fezzik from, The Princess Bride. Okay, I don't know how many people know The Princess Bride, but if you do, either let me know down in the comments or hit like on this video if you know The Princess Bride or have watched it. It's my husband's all-time favorite movie, and he's quoting it all the time. And he's actually listened to these books too. Like we listened to them back, oh my gosh, a long time ago, back when they first came out. And he actually listened to them on audiobook before I did. And he got through the first book and he's like, you have to listen to these. You'll love them. And I did instantly, was in love with them and still am. But I love the banter. She's got this sense of humor that I just get, right? I relate to it. And, it's those times where you're being snarky when you're like, I probably shouldn't be snarky right now. I shouldn't be antagonizing a dragon. The dragon can kill me, so I should probably be nice. But you just can't help but be snarky, right? And so that's kind of Val. So she has her sword and she has her gun, but she also has these charms. And one of the charms is a cat charm. And so she can summon a white tiger into her realm. He's this big tiger, like he's like the size of a pony, and his name is Sindari, and I love Sindari. And the banter between the Val and Sindari, like they're like the best of friends, but they're constantly like talking to each other, right? Like best friends would. And I absolutely love it. Like she'll pick on him every once in a while. She's like, oh look, you're my service animal, and he'll look at her and kind of like glare and it's like, do you want me to gnaw your foot off? I mean, if you haven't read or listened to the Death Before Dragons series, you should definitely look it up. Core Sinister Magic, I gave 5 stars. And then book 2, which is Battle Bond, that one was also a 5-star. And then towards the end of the month, I barely fit in finishing Tangled Truths, which is book 3, and that's also a 5-star. Every single one of these books, absolutely love them. Then I read Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This is a book I've been trying to get to reading like most of 2025, and I cannot believe I waited so long. This book was amazing. Give this book a 5-star. Honestly, I was a little hesitant because when I read the back of the exempt, it really doesn't give you a lot of information, which I get, it's not supposed to. It didn't really drive me in a lot. I mainly picked up the book because everybody was raving about it. Every time I read the back of the exempt, I was just like, I'll get to it. So good. So you have DM Bellator, who her whole life has been told that she is a human, not always felt right. She's on this medicine. She's just always felt different, and she's looked different. She's looked more like the Descended than the humans, which this Descended are like people that were descended from gods. And so they have like magical powers and things like that. Her mom ends up going missing. She like disappears one day. There's this whole mystery around it. And So she's trying to figure out what happened to her mom, but also trying to take over her mom's business because her mom was a healer and she had been taught in the ways of healing. So she took over her mom's duties and responsibilities, was helping with her little brother. As things are happening, she's running into people, she's running into descendants, she's running into all of this like information that she never had before. And so the mysteries surrounding her mom's disappearance keep growing and growing. Then she runs into the prince, and there is just this chemistry between the two of them. Like, he has this reputation of being, really brutal and very powerful. And I don't want to necessarily call them enemies because she doesn't really see him as an enemy, but she doesn't necessarily see him as a friend either because he is a descendant. But there's definitely something going on between the two of them. And she feels that he's also connected to her mother's disappearance. So there's this hesitation there as she's trying to figure stuff out. And how this book ended, oh man, I immediately picked up book 2, and I'm hoping to get to read that in the month of February because I have to know what happens, because all I can say was with the way that this book ended, I wouldn't have done the exact same thing that she did. You spend your whole life thinking one thing just to find out that everything you knew was wrong. And you don't even know who you are. And I would have freaked out too and done the exact same thing she did. Then I went for a big book. I decided to read Book 5 of Zodiac Academy by Caroline Peckman and Suzanne Valenti. This is Cursed Fates, again, the Twisted Sisters. I have really been trying to get through these books. There's 9 in the series. And to be honest, they're a bit dark for me, at least right now. I mean, the type of darkness that I can read kind of varies depending on my mood, the type of year I've had. I feel like the world's just kind of dark right now. And for me, I'm just more wanting a little bit lighter. Oh my gosh, you guys, the amount of bad decisions, bad calls, miscommunications, just these books are so childish. I feel like I'm reading about a bunch of high schoolers, which, okay, you know what? Some people are going, what's wrong with that? I'm 42 years old. High school is over. I am not necessarily someone who wants to read a bunch of high schoolers making stupid decisions. And even then, I could handle it a little bit. But this is book 5, and I feel like we've really gone nowhere. It's just, this book was chock full of a bunch of unnecessary information that we never needed. This was like a filler book. I mean, towards the end, we got into some different stuff. Okay. And then there was some parts in this book, yeah, sure, it made sense. We needed to know about it. That all of the important information that happened in this book could have been done in less than 200 pages. This thing was mostly filler. So with all that being said, books 1 through 4 were 5-star books for me. I loved them. I did. This book for me was a 2-star. A 2-star. I think I'm starting to get tired of all of the dark. I think that it was acceptable for books 1 through 4 because I knew it was a 9-book series. I knew things had to happen, but I was expecting more growth by this point than what we've gotten. And I'm just getting frustrated. Like, I know that there has to be a bad guy. I know bad things have to happen, but this, I'm hoping book 6 will get into more stuff. Like, I've heard several people also have a hard time with book 5, but they said book 6 was really good. So I'm holding out hope. Now, with Zodiac Academy, I feel like I've explained this book to you guys so much. So I'm going to keep it very short and very sweet. You have 2 twins, Darcy and Tori, and they find out that they're not humans, that they're Fae, and they get sent to the Fae realm where they attend this Zodiac Academy to learn about their powers to eventually take up their throne. And then you've got these heirs, they're 4 guys who are set to eventually become rulers of the land, and they don't want to give up their throne. And so there's a lot of bullying. So it's a huge bully trope. And there is like student professor romance trope. And again, like I said, books 1 through 4 were really good. I just want to forget 5 ever existed. Then at the beginning of January, I joined a book club. And the book that we read for January was We Who Will Die. So you have the main character girl, Arvel. I do not know if I'm saying that right, but hopefully I am. You have this like powerful vampire who pretty much binds her to him with a vow that she has to go into these games. She has to win the games so that she can kill the emperor. If she does that, she can have her brothers back. So they're kind of being held hostage until she does her vow. And this is an unbreakable vow, so she has no choice but to do this. So she goes and she participates in these games. While she's there, she ends up running across a guy who is someone from her past that she had been in a relationship with, and he's the last person she wants to see at this point. He broke her heart. And then you've also got the emperor's son, Prince, who is this like mysterious guy. He's like very angry and he's like mean to her and he threatens her life on several occasions, but at the same time he's also had his moments where he's been helpful and he wants to help her learn to control these powers of hers that are starting to surface, and he's this very powerful vampire. That's kind of like the basis of the story. I don't want to say too much because I feel like I would give a lot away and I don't want to do that. It was actually a really good book. I gave this a 4.5 stars. Oh, I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved all of the battle scenes, and you just can't help but feel for this girl. She definitely reminded me of Katniss Everdeen in many ways, and with her like traumas, and because she's fought in battles before, and that's part of why this powerful vampire came looking for her to be his champion, because he knew she could fight. And so, but she's battling all of these demons from her past battles, and now she has to somehow survive against all of these powerful foes in these games that are seriously intense. Then she's got to find a way to then kill the emperor so that she can protect her brothers. Then we have the Strawberry Patch Pancake House. This is part of the Dream Harbor series, and the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which was book 1, is part of that series. And this book was incredible. I gave this one a 5-star. This is the first 5-star book in the entire series for me. This is book 4, I think. Yeah, this is book 4. And so far, this has been my favorite book of the entire series. I was drawn in from page 1. I loved everything about it. It had the single daddy trope, right? Like he didn't even know he was a dad. And so he's this big time chef, and he moves to the small town of Dream Harbor to take care of the daughter that he never knew he had. And so ends up taking a job at the Pancake House. And of course, because he's busy and he's a single dad and, he had no idea what to do, he ends up hiring Iris as his nanny. And she has no idea how to be a nanny. She's never been a nanny, but, she's kind of this free spirit, and she's always going from one job to the next and never stays steady. She really needs a job before she gets kicked out of her apartment. She doesn't want to end up living with her cousin because her cousin's kind of a mess, and she's always playing instruments early in the morning and keeping her awake. And so she gets offered a job to work for Archer as the nanny for his daughter. So she ends up going and helping them. And it's just so amazing because, Archer and his daughter are having a hard time right now because she doesn't know who he is. And so they're trying to bond. And then you've got Iris who comes in and kind of helps them build their relationship, helps them bond, which is interesting because, again, she really doesn't know anything about kids, yet she ends up being the perfect thing for them. And there's the whole like, I can't be messing around with my nanny. She's my nanny. She lives in my house. And guys, it was so good. And I loved it. And it was just perfect for what I was looking for. And it had a lot of kick your feet hilarious moments. It had a lot of melt your heart moments, and you really could feel for these characters. And I loved Archer, and I loved Iris, and I loved their dynamic and the found family and how they came together, and it was just absolutely beautiful. By this point, I was like, yes, please. So I read Metal Slinger, and this one also got a 5-star. 5-star read. I was in love with it. However, I had to stop and think about this rating a little bit because the ending of this book I was not a fan of. You have this girl, Bren, who has been living on I wouldn't even call it an island. It's in the middle of the ocean. These people have been basically banned due to war and stuff like that. They've been banned to no longer be able to live on land. So they've been like living in these trees in the middle of the ocean. And once so many years, some of the guards get to go and sail to the mainland and buy wares and things like that on the docks. She trains to be a guard so that she can go, and she does. She goes, and while she's there, she runs across a guard who basically tries to accuse her of stealing to try to arrest her. She manages to get away, and she manages to get on the boat with her people and sail back. But then the guard comes and he finds her, and then he ends up taking her away, tells her that she's not who everybody's claiming that she is, that she's been lied to, that he wants to take her back home where she actually belongs. And in the process, she learns about magic and how she has magic, and she's got this rare magic. I loved the connection between Bren and the guard. Like, oh my goodness, it was fire, and I loved everything about it. I loved the adventure. There was a lot of time spent out on the sea, and it was a really good time. And there was always something happening. It was definitely action packed. However, the ending was one of the worst endings I think I've ever read in a book. I went from cloud 9 to the last 10 pages just tanking. I was like, what the hell did they just do? I was very upset. I was so upset. I wanted to take what originally for me was a 5-star book and then just trash it. Right? I finished it, but I was so mad. I had to stop myself, and I had to think about the book itself. Okay, yes, the last little bit of it was made me so mad, but overall, this book was very, very good, and it's definitely a book that I think about a lot, and I'm also sad about because I don't know if I'm going to pick up book 2. I looked it up, and I read the exempt for it. I don't know if I would be into that, and I'm like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to give anything away, but I don't know, guys. I don't know. Again, I gave this book 5 stars because all the way up until the last 10 pages, this was the most amazing book that I would have said that I read in 2025 until the end. So not God tier, but 5-star. Then I decided to get out of fantasy again, and I went with Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the last book that I read in January, and I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did, but it was actually a good time. I gave this book 4 stars. And the main reason why I didn't think I was going to like it is because I'm not a huge fan of huge age gaps like that. I am, I'm in my 40s. My daughter is grown, I just can't read age gap books like that much anymore. It just makes me feel dirty, and yeah. So I had to look past that, and honestly, except for the times where they talked about the age gap, I just pretended it wasn't there, and that's what helped me get through the book. And I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the premise of it. So you have this guy who has a son, the mom of this boy who isn't even really a mom. She was just the baby factory. He tried to make a relationship work with the mom, but she just didn't want to be there, and she hated it there. And so they kind of divorced and left, and he kept his son. And so he's been trying to take care of his son and run his family's ranch, trying to juggle all of this stuff. So then he decides that he needs to hire a nanny. And this is where it kind of reminds me of the Strawberry Patch Pancake House in a way, because, it's the whole single daddy nanny trope. In comes Willa Grant, which was friends to the girl from Flawless, because this is part of this series. This is the Chestnut Springs series. She ends up taking this position, and she's much younger than he is. I think it's 14 years. 13. Kate is 13 years older than Willa. But they just work. And, he's been burned by a woman before, and Willa is just very flighty and all over the place, kind of like Iris from the Strawberry Patch Pancake House. Again, a lot of resemblances, only this is more in a country western setting with cowboys and stuff. But she knows how to ride horses, and her and his son hit it off instantly. And then they just kind of start becoming this family and start doing things together. And it was just a very sweet read. Cade's been through a lot. He's kind of grumpy, and she's sunshine. So you got the grumpy sunshine scenario, and they balance each other out so much. And every time she would get him to smile, she would crack some kind of joke what's happening to your face, but it was really good. And again, had to get past that age gap. And for the most part, I just pretended like it wasn't there and I got through it. But there was a couple times where they actually mentioned it and I'm just like, but aside from that, again, really good book, gave it 4 stars. So that was all 10 books that I read and listened to in January. I'm starting off on fire, like 10 books already in January, and I'm already doing better than I did in 2025 in January. I think I only got through like 3 or 4 books in January last year. So 10 books in. I am February. I hope that you can keep up with the amazing reads that I had in January. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what you thought of them. And I hope everybody's been having a fantastic week and have big plans for the weekend. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.